Hello, everybody, and welcome or welcome back to the second shelf and to another recent reads on Sunday, which is actually more of a currently reading because, as I said in the show notes, not to give you the wrong impression, there's only one book I finished and I can't even really talk about it, and that is this kind of chunker, The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honoré Fanon Jeffers, published last year, and this is a finalist for the Booktube Prize. So it's one of the 6 finalists in fiction, and it's the only book that I still had to read for the final round because the other 5 I had already read in previous rounds. And the winner will be announced the second weekend of October, the 10th, something, and until then, I can't really talk about it. I will say, spoiler alert for all of you as a sort of forewarning. Yes, that's all I'm going to say. Isn't that clickbaity? And, anyway, so I will talk the rest of the video is the books I'm currently reading. And 2 of them, I don't have physical copies, so I start with them. They are both buddy reads. The first one is Gifts, the first book in the Annals of the Western Shore by Ursula Le Guin. And I'm buddy reading this book with Adam. As always, you'll find his Instagram, the link to his Instagram page down below. If you follow my channel, you might know that Adam and I are on this quest to read all of Le Guin's work slowly. I mean, for Adam, that is not a problem, the slow stuff, because he's really young. For me, I just hope I will make it. But we make our way through her work. We read the Hainish cycle, we read the Orsinia, and now we are reading the Annals of the Western Shore, starting with Gifts. If you're not familiar with the book, it was published in 2004, and it's considered YA, and it is about especially two young people, 2 teenagers who have special gifts. They live in a community far from the rest of people, and all the people in their community have certain gifts. And that could be like our main female protagonist, she can call animals. And the more dubious or dangerous gift, Auric, the young male protagonist, he can undo things. And that can mean he can collapse a building, but it can also kill people. And the book is about how these 2 young people deal with the power and the responsibility and the problems that these so-called gifts have for them. So it's a coming of age, but also looking at things like, what do you do with the power you have? What do you do with things you can do? Does that mean you have to do them? So yeah, we're about halfway in, and we will finish beginning of next week, and I'm really enjoying it. I love Ursula Le Guin, if you haven't gathered that yet. The second buddy read that I also read on ebook, and I read that with Terry, who also used to have a Booktube channel, just like Adam. She's sometimes still on Instagram, so I will leave also her Instagram, a link to her Instagram page down below. And yeah. But anyway, we are reading Tana French's 3rd book in the Dublin Murder Squad series, and that is Faithful Place. And I love Tana French. You also might remember that I want to read Irish female authors. That is a project that I'm doing together with Kim. But I'm not reading this with Kim because Terry and I agreed to read this together way before this whole Irish thing project with Kim started. So sorry, Kim. I'm sort of, being unfaithful with Faithful Place. And this is about, if you read the Dublin Murder Squad series, you also know it's not a series like Ian Ranking's series with Rebus as a main character, or Donna Leon with Inspector Brunetti. What Tana French does is she takes a character from the previous book who played a role but was not the main investigator and makes him or her the center of the next book. So this book centers around Frank McKee, who is who leads an undercover unit, and he is not undercover in this book because there is a murder close to home, let's say, close to his past. So he has to go back to where he came from and then insert himself in various ways into the investigation, because he is not really the cop who investigates the crime. But it's Tana French style, really well done. It's character focused. Again, I say that I mentioned that when I talked about The Searcher, the book that I read previously. So it's a standalone Tana French, and this one I did read with Kim, and we both loved it. But I said, if you read mysteries or thrillers, and you're looking for this is extremely suspenseful, fast-paced, very, very plot-oriented book, then Tana French might not be the right author for you, because she plots really well. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to put you off if you are interested in plot. You know I'm a plot-oriented reader. But her books are very much character-centered. And the characters are interesting enough to carry you through. So I'm loving it. We will finalize the book also next week. Then I started, I think I said that also in my last recent reads, I started this one, Selby wins Schwartz after Sappho, which was published earlier this year. This was longlisted for the Booker Prize, but didn't make it on the shortlist. It's a debut novel, and I'm, like 20 pages in. And so far, I'm really, really enjoying it. It is... the premise of the book is that it looks at artists through the centuries who made their way and didn't live according to what women should do at the time. And there is this connection with Sappho, who is, the first known poet in ancient Greece. We don't have a lot of her poems left, but she is a kind of inspirational figure for a lot of female artists, and that is the red thread through the book. That's all I can say for now, because like I said, 20 pages, not that much, but so far I really enjoyed it. It could be a Britta book, but you never know after 20 pages, too early, and I don't want to jinx it. Then I had also 2 more buddy reads that I'm working on. I'm a bit... I'm quite scheduled with buddy reads, but that's okay, because I love buddy reads. But that means that my reading is quite scheduled. It's not, I'm picking this up, but it's more like, I have to read this for the check-in. Not that, I love schedule, so don't get me wrong, this is not a complaint. Anyway, the book that I'm reading with Courtney, from Courtney Ferreter, is this modern classic, Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko. Silko is an indigenous author, and the book was published in 1977, and this is the 70th anniversary Penguin edition, which has a really beautiful cover. I think it also has pickled edges, but we are not going to talk about that. Anyway, we are reading this over the course of 2 weeks, and our first check-in is actually today. When this video goes up, I will have checked in with Courtney. So this is I did not really know what to expect from this book. I picked it. It's on the 1001 books by women that I have to read before I die list, because I want to include indigenous authors. And it is a modern classic, obviously. But I didn't know much about the story other than that it is set right after World War II in the early 50s and follows the main character Tayo, who is a veteran, Second World War veteran, and who is struggling for various reasons after the war. It is a very dense read. Halfway through, it's in a way it is not entirely linear. So we have flashbacks, Tayo thinking back on what happened, the gruesome experiences he had during the war and when he was a prisoner in a Japanese prisoner camp, what happened to army buddies of his, but also looking back at family in the reservation, and he returns to the reservation after the war. And he is struggling so much with what we now would call post-traumatic stress disorder, that his grandmother, she thinks we need a ceremony, some sort of, medicine man who helps Tayo get rid of the ghost, so to speak. The additional issue with Tayo, also in the reservation, is that his mother was an indigenous woman, but his father was white. So he is what they call a half-breed, and that causes also all kinds of troubles as well. I think the storytelling and the writing are incredible. It's a book that I for me at least, it feels I have to read it slow because otherwise I miss stuff. And I'm not that much of a World War II reader. I've read too many stories in German literature about World War II, but this is definitely fantastic so far. So yeah, I'm really enjoying, is not the right word because it's not pretty, but it's really good so far. And the last one is a nonfiction book and also a buddy read with this time with Heidi from My Reading Life. We always buddy read, as you know, so we have there was a little gap video wise because we read another issue of The Atlantic. So we read books, but we also read The Atlantic together, which is fantastic because magazines tend to be put on the pile and wait for some time to read them, and then the pile stacks up. And that happened with me in the Atlantic, and I think it happened with Heidi as well. And since we read them together, we are kind of, much more caught up. And there are so many things to discuss with these articles. So I really love that. But we finished the June Atlantic, and the next one will be the July-August. And in between, we read another book. What's the book? What's the book? What's the book? Sorry for the long-winded introduction. So it's Finding Latinx, In Search of the Voices Redefining a Latino Identity by Paula Ramos, who is a journalist. And the book was published 2020. Yes, 2020. So it is a road trip kind of nonfiction. In other words, Paula Ramos travels from Los Angeles down south to Texas, up to Florida and the East Coast, the middle somewhere, and looks for Latino how do you say that? Communities. That was the word, communities. She defines the word Latinx as being something newish. I mean, 2020, the book was published, that is embraced by many Latino people, but not all of them. And Heidi and I are reading this for September is Hispanic Heritage Month, and that started 3 days ago, on the 15th. So that's a book that we are reading for that. We are a third in, and yeah, it's really, really good. I learn an immense amount. She has the right mixture of very personal stories of individual people she talks to, but they all stand for some bigger issue. So one of the chapters is about a transgender woman who comes from Mexico, or who came from Mexico. Then there are refugees from Guatemala who are not at all Spanish or Hispanic or Latinx, but they are from Mayan descent, and what kind of issues they have. She starts with the farm workers in California and the way they are still treated, and the pesticides issues and things like that. So it's a wealth of information. It's harrowing. I know very little about the discrimination and the hardship and the issues that brown people encounter in the US. So that was one of the reasons that I wanted to pick up this book, to, learn more. And this book definitely doesn't disappoint in terms of learning more. I have to say one kind of is that the editing could have been better. There are, typo stuff, typo. Yeah, it's not a real typo, but that type of mistake. For instance, at one point she says 10 out of 6 Latinos. Well, that's obviously not possible. And what she meant was 6 out of 10. And an editor should have caught that. As always, I'm blaming the editor of this vintage book. Is it vintage book? A vintage book original. I mean, boo-hoo, not a good job, which is a disservice to this book because the book is really, really good. Yeah, anyway, we will finish this one. Yeah, it will take a little. We have the next check-in on Wednesday for the next third. So anyway, this was my kind of sort of recent reads, but more currently reading on Sunday. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. As always, I'm very much looking forward to your comments, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.